My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my list of the best movies of 2024. And I keep hearing people talk about how much this year sucked for movies, and I just do not agree. Like, don't get me wrong, there were some really shitty movies, but, but, there were some really solid movies at the same time. And I actually found it difficult to come up with a top 10. And I don't usually do this on my channel, but I'm going to do some honorable mentions. So, my honorable mentions are Kill, an Indian action movie that is thrilling and tense and exciting, and I had a great time with. Hitman, a movie with two great performances from Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona. It's silly and absurd, but there is an edge to this movie, and I thought it was a fascinating look at identity. VHS Beyond, which I thought was a consistent horror anthology with some incredible segments. The First Omen, which is so well directed and so well acted and left me with a real impact. A Real Pain, which I thought had a very smart script. The characters had depth, and the two main performances are just fantastic. Late Night with the Devil had a very unique and interesting aesthetic, and David Dastmalchian gives a really fantastic performance. Frankie Freakle, which is such a hilarious, absurd movie, and it's so well crafted as well because the puppetry, the practical effects, and the production design are just top notch. And then Sting. I loved this movie. It's the most underrated movie of the year. It's just a great throwback creature feature, but it just barely missed my list. I should also mention that I haven't seen the Robbie Williams biopic Better Man, so I don't know if it would make my list, but it's not on my list. So let's get into it with my 10th favorite movie of 2024, and it's Terrifier 3. The more I sit with this movie, the more I love it. It is just so incredibly well directed by Damien Leone, and I love the old grindhouse aesthetic. It looks just like an old Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but it's also got this nice Christmas look and feel at the same time, and that contrast just works so perfectly for me. I love the use of Christmas music throughout. I love how brutal and sick and disgusting this movie can be. This movie can be very tense, and it can also be really funny. Like, David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown is just pure evil, but he can also be really goofy at the same time, and that's why he's such a great antagonist. I love the look of Victoria throughout this movie. She's a great henchwoman to Art, and I liked the story here quite a bit. It's a great look at PTSD and trying to move on from such a traumatic experience. And Sienna's relationship with her niece gave this movie some nice emotion. And the last section of this movie is just crazy. Like, this movie ends on a cliffhanger that got me so excited for Terrifier 4, and yes, this movie just completely worked for me. I loved it, so that's why it's my 10th favorite movie of the year. My ninth favorite movie of 2024 is Smile 2, and I actually think I gave this movie a 7 out of 10 when I saw it, but it has sat so incredibly well with me. First of all, Naomi Scott gives one of the best performances of the year. She brings this character to life in such a pitch perfect manner, and what she's able to do is beyond impressive. Um, the soundtrack here is actually really great. Like New Brain and Grieving You are really great songs. But this movie is so well directed by Parker Finn. That opening scene with Kyle Garner is so good, and the movie is just beautifully shot throughout. The movie has great sound design, and there are some really creepy moments. That scene in her apartment where all the dancers are there just got under my skin so badly, and this movie just feels like madness. Like, what's real, what's not. And the more this movie goes on for, the more it leans into that by the end, there's just no grasp on reality. And I just felt bad for the main character, and I just really felt it. I hated The Forced Smile, but this movie was an improvement on every single level, and that's why it's number 9. My 8th favorite movie of 2024 is going to be a hot take, but it's here. Now, I have a very complicated relationship with Robert Zemeckis because he has made some of my favorite movies of all time, but he has also made some of the worst movies ever made, and I never know what I'm going to get from him, but I thought he fully delivered here. Um, I do love the editing. It's such a unique way to present this story, and the entire premise of just one camera staying still and just focusing on this space throughout time. I've never seen anything like it. I haven't. It is such a unique and profound movie, and there's plenty here about love and life and loss and grief. So I thought it hit some big emotional beats, but it also shows how technology has progressed throughout time, how cultural norms have changed throughout time. And it also shows you just how much history one spot can have, and it just really affected me. It's a movie that has sat so incredibly well, and I thought the performances by Tom Hanks and Robin Wright and Paul Bettany were just fantastic. And yeah, it's just a one of a kind movie. So that's why it's my 8th favorite. My 7th favorite movie of the year is Alien Romulus. And this movie is just so well crafted by Fede Alvarez. Like, this movie is filled with atmosphere and tension from beginning to end. I love the look of the planet at the very start, and the production design is incredible. It's beautifully shot. The sound design is incredible. And the practical effects are just pure perfection. There are so many great sections of this movie, whether it's the introduction to the face huggers, or the X-ray chest burster, or the ship crash, or the scene where they have to sneak past all the face huggers, or the scene where the one character dies by the acid blood, or the scene where they have to use zero gravity. Like, that was one of the best scenes of the year, and the entire finale was just thrilling and just incredible. And I just got so much enjoyment from this movie. I like how you've got a little bit of Alien. you've got a little bit of aliens, you've got a little bit of alien resurrection, you've got a little bit of Prometheus, but it still felt like its own movie from beginning to end. And Kaylee Spaney carries this movie so incredibly well, but David Johnson gave one of the best performances of the year. He is so good here, and I really like how his character changes throughout. So, I know plenty of people hate this movie, but I loved it. My sixth favorite movie of 2024 is Lisa Frankenstein. And this movie is so underrated. Catherine Newton gave one of my favorite performances of the year. I love how at the start she's very shy and quiet, but she gains confidence throughout the movie and she becomes really lively by the end, and she can be really funny. She brings emotional weight. It is her best work. Cole Sprouse also did a really good job. Carla Gugino stands out as the evil stepmom. But I also really liked the stepsister and how she isn't the character I thought she would be. But another big star of this movie is Zelda Williams. She directs this movie so incredibly well. There's so many interesting and unique creative decisions made throughout, and everyone worked for me. The movie can be animated, the movie can be in black and white, and the use of colors and the 80s aesthetic just worked so incredibly well for me. This is an incredibly well crafted movie from top to bottom, and it's entertaining throughout. I was engaged with the story. There were some nice emotional beats. I liked how the 80s songs weren't the obvious pick, and Waves of Mutilation by the Pixies is just one of my favorite songs of all time, and the movie is really funny. Yeah, I just loved this movie. I had a great time with it, and I can see myself watching it so many times in my lifetime. My fifth favorite movie of 2024 is Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And can I just talk about how impressive it is that Michael Keaton just slips back into this character like it was the next day after the original? He just captured that chaotic energy so perfectly, and he is so funny throughout. I love Willem Dafoe in this movie. I love the running gag of him being handed a cup of coffee in almost every scene. I thought the ex-wife's introduction was one of the best scenes of the year. Justin Theroux as a character and how he uses therapy talk to manipulate Lydia made for a very entertaining character. I thought Catherine O'Hara was so funny, Jenna Ortega did a really good job, and Winona Ryder did everything that she needed to incredibly well. So the entire cast just worked for me. But it's Tim Burton who carried this movie. This is such a well-crafted movie with some incredible production design, some of the best practical effects, and I love the change in tone. Like, the first movie is somber and depressing, but this movie feels more like a Looney Tunes cartoon, and it is hilarious. Like, this movie got me laughing out loud in so many scenes, and that scene of Astrid riding the bike set to the song Someday by Tess Parks is just a total vibe. So I loved how this movie is a sequel to Beetlejuice, but it felt like its own thing entirely. The story worked for me, the character work is good, The movie is incredibly well made, it's hilarious, it's interesting, it's well acted. I love how we get a scene that turns into an Italian horror movie for just a moment. I love how there's a claymation scene. There's just so much creativity on display, and I love this movie so very much. My fourth favorite movie of 2024 is Tristos. This was the movie of the summer for me. I saw it 3 times, and my 4DX experience with this movie was one of the best theatrical experiences I have ever had in my life. And I just love this movie. It's so rewatchable, it's so entertaining, and it just feels like an old school disaster movie in the best possible way. Glenn Powell is just so charming and likable here. Daisy Edgar Jones brought plenty of emotional weight while still being charming and likable, and their chemistry is just off the charts. I was really invested in these characters, and I like how the nice guys turn out to not be so nice, and how the douchey guys don't turn out to be douchey. It's a nice subversion of expectations, and I think this movie is so well made by Lee Isaac Chung. There's a real love for this area of the country on display, just in the way it's shot, and the use of country music throughout brought a really unique vibe to this movie. And the soundtrack is great. Ain't Got No Love in Oklahoma, Out of Oklahoma, Dead End World. So many great songs are in this movie. I thought the movie was very exciting at times. The movie can be very tense, especially in the climax. But what surprised me most, and maybe it's just me here, but I actually thought this movie was quite emotional. The beginning, where she loses all her friends, caught me completely off guard, and it got me immediately invested, and it hit the emotional beats it needed to. And yeah, I just have such a great time with this movie. I've already watched it a bunch of times. I will continue to watch it a bunch more times. It's just so damn great. But my third favorite movie of the year. And look, sometimes my reviews don't age well because I saw this movie in May and I gave it a 7 out of 10. But I just rewatched it a few weeks ago and I'm like, oh, nah, this is a perfect movie. And it's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This movie is just so good. It really is. Anya Taylor-Joy gives one of the best performances of the year. She just carries this movie so incredibly well, and she brought plenty to this character. But Chris Hemsworth is the best performance of the year here. We have never seen him like this, and he just fully delivered. This is a memorable performance that feels bigger than life, and he just stole each and every moment. Dementis is just a really terrific villain, and I also love the direction by George Miller. The cinematography, the CGI, the production design, the costumes, the makeup, all top notch. And I also love how this movie feels more like an epic odyssey than Mad Max Fury Road. Like, there's definitely similarities tonally, But in terms of the story being told, it just feels so different, and it adds plenty of world building to this universe, and it's a very entertaining movie while still having a lot more to offer. The action is terrific. It can be very thrilling and tense. That one scene in the bullet farm area is just so good. The movie can be brutal. That scene where Furiosa escapes from the Mantis in the middle of the desert is so good. And it just feels so singular. It feels like a one of a kind movie, and it's long, but I loved it. I really did. And I love that final scene with Furiosa and Dementis. So, yes, this is a movie that has aged incredibly well, and it got infinitely better on a rewatch, and I can see myself going back to this movie plenty more in the future. So that's why it's my third favorite movie of 2024. And then we get to my second favorite movie of 2024, and it's Challengers. And here's the funny thing about that. I hate Luca Guadagnino. I think he is one of the most overrated directors, and I hate every other one of his movies. Every other one. So this movie isn't just a minor improvement, it's a night and day difference. It really is. And he just does such a great job directing this movie, the way it's edited, the kinetic energy he brings to this story, the way it's told in a non-linear fashion that really amplifies everything going on. Some of the camera decisions at the end are just perfection. And the music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is the best score of the year. It just brings this energy and it just brings this vibe to this movie that really helps it stand out. But also the script is so fucking good. It really is. It's kind of like Whiplash, but with tennis. And I thought these characters had plenty of depth. Their relationships with each other had plenty of depth. And the way it all builds to this climax, which was one of the greatest endings I've seen, period, just felt so good. Like, I was watching this movie in theaters and I was like on the edge of my seat and I'm like, oh, no, he didn't. And the way that all builds to this exciting, it's so good. The ending is just pure perfection and it leaves you on this high. I also think Josh O'Connell gives one of the best performances of the year here. He brought so much to his character. Well, he can be likable and charming, but he can also be really pathetic. And Mike Feist is also really terrific here, and Zendaya continues to deliver. Just everyone understood their assignment and gave this movie everything they got, and I think in terms of the script, in terms of the acting, in terms of the direction, it is easily my second favorite movie of the year. But my favorite movie of the year is The Substance. This movie is so good. It's so good. And I do love how this movie is very on the nose, but I would also argue that it's subtle at the same time. Like, yes, this movie is clearly about beauty expectations, but this movie also has plenty more to say about aging and mortality and self-hatred, and the way it explores those ideas I found to be so effective. This movie just really struck a nerve with me, and there is one scene where Elizabeth is going out on a date, and it is one of the saddest scenes I've seen in quite some time. So this movie can be emotional, but here's the deal. The movie is also very brutal, gross, disgusting. It's also really silly and campy and funny, and it just does so much and fully knocked it out of the park. The practical effects in this movie are just so good, and they reminded me of Society and The Fly and just so many old school horror movies, and it just felt refreshing in today's day and age. But also, the cinematography is top notch. To me, this is the best shot movie of the year. The editing is so good. The sound is so good. The score just fits this movie so incredibly well. The production design is so good. Just the overall direction by Chloe Forgate is masterful top to bottom. This movie is a work of art, and I'm baffled by just how good it is. And I also love some of the storytelling decisions here, like the way this movie begins with someone injecting an egg with the substance. So you know what the substance does. And then we get this 2-3 minute scene of Elizabeth Sparkles getting her Hollywood star. And just like that, you know everything you need to know about this character. And then we get this scene with Dennis Quaid in a bathroom, and it tells you everything you need to know about this character. And just every decision made was so brilliant, and I was really blown away by it. I really was. I can't believe that this movie is actually up for awards attention, and rightfully so, but it's just so crazy, and it feels like a movie that would be niche, but it's obviously hitting a lot of different people effectively, and I'm glad to see that. I really am. I thought Demi Moore brought plenty of depth to her character, and she really stood out. Margaret Qualley does a really great job. I love her one line delivery of "Control yourself." Dennis Quaid is so over the top and hamming it up here. It's in a really great way. I love the way this movie escalates to this batshit finale. Like, this movie is just everything. It really is. Not only is this the best movie of 2024, I would say it's one of the best horror movies ever made, and this would be in my top 100 movies of all time. It's that good. It's smart and funny and gross, and it just, yeah, I love it. I said my piece. If you haven't seen this movie yet, watch it immediately. So, that's my list of the best movies of 2024, but what's your list? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin,